Always end a run or your training week knowing you could have handled more. This is probably my favorite tip for runners of all ability levels, especially the advanced runners out there. Now, what you're gonna find is that over time, you really can handle more, and it wasn't a struggle to get to that point. You absolutely do not have to put in a race effort to get all the benefits from your training. You're going to be reaping all the benefits of that workout by holding back a little bit and keeping things nice and controlled. And since you didn't wreck yourself during the workout, you're going to be able to recover and put in another quality effort in just a few days. So for example, if you're doing a 20-minute tempo, you should end that 20-minute tempo knowing you could have went 20 to 30 minutes longer at that same pace or effort. Even if you're doing more of a VO2 max workout, let's just say 6 times 800 meters, you should still end knowing you could have done 2, maybe 3 reps still at that same pace. So with that in mind, every now and then you can do all-out efforts, but these should be pretty short workouts. You should already be fairly fit, or they could also be race efforts like a 5K to 10K race. Maybe you're using that as a training run, let's say for like a half marathon or something. So that counts, but this should only be 1 to 2 times in a training cycle up to your goal race. And again, if you're doing this during a workout, it should be a fairly short workout. I don't want to give distance because it depends on your level. And yeah, as I said, you should already be fairly fit. You already want your body to be pretty strong and be able to handle that kind of stress. But that aside, if you do that, you do have to make sure you fully recover before doing something else that causes stress on your body. So if you do, let's say you're doing a 10K race, you might have to take it fairly easy that entire week, maybe longer depending on who you are, just to make sure you're not digging yourself in a hole before your goal race. Now, with all that said, taking your easy days easy enough is really one of the best ways to make important aerobic adaptations while recovering from your more challenging runs. All right, let's talk about strides. Strides are such a good way to improve speed while putting less stress on the body, at least once you get used to them. So this one study from the physiology report, they looked at 20 runners, I believe it was over a 40-day period. I'll throw it up here just so you're making sure I'm getting my facts right. So over a 40-day period, I think they only did 10 sessions of strides. And what they found by the end of the study is that their 10K performance improved by 3.2%. So that's pretty significant. What's interesting is that their actual VO2 max did not improve at all. What did improve was their velocity at VO2 max. So in other words, their speed at VO2 max improved, or their speed with the same amount of oxygen improved. Or I could also say that their aerobic system did not improve. So what did improve? So things like their neuromuscular system improved, their biomechanics improved, and more things like that. So let's talk about incorporating strides into your schedule. So for my athletes, yes, they do strides for a warm-up before a speed workout, but that's not their key stride session. I typically like to put strides the day before a speed workout or long run, and that can help prime the body for those sessions while also getting the benefits of just doing strides. I typically don't like to put strides the day after a speed workout or a long run just because I like those days to be kept truly easy, so no really fast running at all. So keeping a theme basically of easy days easy. So going back when to do strides, typically the day before a key workout. And I would say do strides 2 to 3 times a week, so you might have to play around with your own schedule a little bit. For most people, 2 times per week is probably going to be great, and then maybe doing it again as a pre-run warm-up before a faster run. So how many strides should you do and how long should they be? If you're just starting out, totally new to strides, you just might want to test out 2 to 4 your first time, maybe like 2 to 4 times 15 seconds your first time, and just really ease into it. If you're more experienced with strides already, maybe anywhere from 4, maybe up to 10. I typically like 4 to 8 times 20 seconds, but the length can last from 15 seconds, maybe up to 30 seconds for longer strides. Another option is to do strides on a slight uphill. This is going to be helpful for runners who may be injury prone, especially if like a hamstring injury. It can be really protective against hamstring issues. So that's just something to think about. Or if you just want to like focus more on power or more like on engaging your glutes, starting off with hill strides might be a good option for you. Other things to know about strides is that the recovery should be fairly long. So if you're doing a 20-second stride, your recovery might be anywhere from like 60 to 90 seconds. You might want to walk the first few seconds. You don't have to. Some people might just be able to jog easy for 60 to 90 seconds. But if you have to walk a couple steps, like that's totally fine. You want to make sure you're fully recovered before starting the next stride. Another very important note is when you're doing strides, the focus is always on good form before speed. And with that said, this is not a sprint. Strides and sprints are two different things. When you're doing a stride, you're building up speed, and close to the end, you are getting close to top speed, but not quite there. And very importantly, you want to teach yourself to stay physically and mentally relaxed as you're doing the strides, and that's going to help translate over to other speed workouts. So again, focus on good form, stay relaxed, make sure you recover long enough. If you're learning something from this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really does make it possible for me to continue making more videos for you. This is my one suggestion for you that will take up more of your time, and that's to build up your mileage. Now, if you're already a high mileage runner, this might not be the best advice for you, but if you're a lower mileage runner, like let's say you're running 15 miles per week, this is a great suggestion for you. And if you're injury prone and worried that building up your mileage will lead to injuries, hear me out. But let's start with just building up your mileage. So let's say if you're at 15 miles per week, going to 20 miles or to 25 and then to 30 miles, that can lead to huge improvements. And you can just do that all with easy miles. You don't have to add in more speed. You might be able to, but even if you just take where you're at and you build up your mileage with truly easy mileage, you're gonna build up your aerobic base. And your aerobic system is everything you use, or pretty much most of what you use for a 5K, 10K, for a marathon, everything like that. Even if you're doing an 800-meter race, you're still using your aerobic system for a large part of that. So just running easy miles can really help improve your speed and endurance. If you want to learn more on this, check this video. I'll put somewhere up here that I recently did on building your aerobic base and all the benefits that come with it. All that aside, a great way to build up your aerobic base without getting injured is cross-training. So think cycling, swimming, going on elliptical. All those are great options, and you're still building up your aerobic base by just using those as tools. A good example of this is Parker Valby. She placed second at the NCAA Division I Cross Country Championships, and she did most of her training on the elliptical. So it's good proof that cross training can help, and I do like the elliptical for its specificity in regards to running. Something that can really help you reach your potential training for a race is when you're planning your training, make sure you're getting more specific as you go. Let's use a 5K race, for example. I'll do a marathon too. So both things, you want to start with a good aerobic base phase. That's always important. And then so for 5K training, you might, and some of this is dependent on your history and injury and stuff like that. That aside, for a 5K training, after your base phase, you might actually want to focus more on like tempo work. It doesn't mean you're not doing shorter intervals too, but the focus is more on tempo work. Then as you approach the race, so maybe your final like 4 to 6 weeks towards the race, that's when you're really doing your 5K specific training. So a lot of your interval sessions are either around right at 5K pace, could be a little bit slower depending on what the workout is, or even faster than 5K race pace. So just really specific 5K training. Now, if you're doing a marathon, you still want to do the aerobic base phase. And then this next part is, it depends on your injury history and what your injuries were. But let's say all is well, then you might actually want to do more of your 5K, 10K training. And then after that block of like 5K, 10K training type work, so like more like 5K, 10K specific effort or paced intervals, then you're really moving into focusing on lactate threshold and marathon specific works. So you're getting more specific as you go. Or if you're a mountain runner, you might not start off doing a lot of vert, and some of your work, even a good chunk of your workouts at the start might still be on flatter terrain, but then in the last like 4 to 6, probably 6 weeks, depending on the distance leading up to the race, then you're really focusing on more like hill specific work and just trying to get really specific on the terrain for your workouts and especially for your long runs. So if you're interested in training plans that already thought this out for you, check out higherrunning.com. There's training plans for 5K races all the way up to 100 miles. If you want to make athletic performance gains, research is showing that positive self-talk matters. In the past, I felt like I would sometimes get people rolling their eyes at me when I talked about mindset training, but now there's just so much research out there showing that your mindset matters. If you grew up in an atmosphere like I did around sports, there's a lot of mindset about pain is weakness leaving the body, just get it done no matter what, embrace the pain and stuff like that. That's not positive self-talk. Now let's talk about what positive self-talk actually looks like. So positive self-talk could be things like telling yourself, you've got this, you're so strong, just do your best during the moment at hand, things like that. So very encouraging words. You can even tell yourself you look good. This is good if you just want to run a little bit taller, work on running form. There was a fun study on that where telling people they look good actually helped with running form. So just think of anything that works for you. I just threw out some kind of like typical stuff, but you can personalize it for you and maybe areas of what you want to focus on. I would also recommend, before even starting a run, take a moment to think about how you want to think, act, and feel during that run. Sometimes when we're during the run, it's hard to come up with positive, encouraging words on the fly, but if you think of just a couple words to tell yourself that you can focus on for that run, that can be really helpful. That way you're not mentally straining trying to think of something. You already have something in your tool bag ready to use. So if you really want to get great at this is something you have to do throughout the entire day. This just is not for running. If you just focus on running, you're never gonna get as good with it as you could. So practice it at work, practice it with your relationships. Anything like that, like you should be practicing your positive self-talk and practicing like how you want to think and how you want to bring yourself into a certain situation. If you'd like more information on how to improve your speed this year, from running form, strength training, how to actually plan your training, nutrition, more mindset stuff, check out the Ultimate Running Course, How to Run to Your Highest Potential, over at higherrunning.com. I'm your coach, Sandy Nightpaver, and whether you're trying to run 1 mile or 100+ miles, I'm here to help you. Until next time, keep running wild.